Let us take a moment and talk about tasers versus stun guns. In the world that we live in, people like to assign generic names to objects. For instance, Jell-O. Not all gelatin-flavored desserts are Jell-O, right? But you say Jell-O meaning everything that's orange and green and you know that you like to put in your mouth. We say tasers or stun guns as though they are interchangeable. This object right here, you've probably seen these for 20, 30 years, is a handheld stun gun. Now, this is a stun gun, all right? This object right here is a taser, T-A-S-E-R. Taser is a brand name. A taser is not a stun gun is not a taser. They're completely and totally different. Number one, what is the main difference? Number one, this is a pain compliance tool. The little blue sparks cause pain. And if the person is in the mood or not in the mood to enjoy that pain or to appreciate that pain, well then maybe they'll stop what they're doing. The taser, on the other hand, is not necessarily only pain compliance. Pain compliance is part of it, but what you get from a genuine, real, no-kidding taser is you get involuntary compliance. Pain compliance and involuntary compliance, because this upsets or interrupts your nervous system. Whereas the regular stun gun, if you put it on someone, they say, owie, owie, that hurts. From a realistic standpoint, the only people that are afraid of the blue sparks that come from this are people who've either never experienced it or you. Genuine bad guys, the genuine bad guy who wants to pummel your face into the ground is not going to be dissuaded by a handheld stun gun. You're like, but Paul, I went to the mall and the guy at the kiosk and he's like, zip, zip, zip. And I was like, oh, don't touch me with that. Okay, great. Were you in the process of pummeling that guy's head into the ground? No, you may have wanted to, but you weren't probably, right? Folks, if these were so great, ask the guy at the kiosk, ask the guy at the mall kiosk. You say, you tell me that this is a 20 billion volt stun gun for only $19.95, and it's going to take down a 300-pound drunken attacker. It's just going to, and they're going to go down. And he's like, oh yeah. And you say, name one law enforcement agency in the United States of America that is issuing handheld stun guns today. Name one. Tell that guy at the mall kiosk, if you can name one, I'll buy that from you. And he'll go, because they're not. What they are issuing out is tasers, and tasers are not the same. Now you say, that's great, Paul, but I'm not a police officer, I'm not a corrections officer, so this is verboten for me, I can't have one. Now, you may live in a slave state where it is illegal for you to own a taser device. That's not Taser's fault, it's your fault for voluntarily being a slave. And I'm sorry for you. But for people who live in free America, yes, you can indeed buy Taser products. And this one that's in my hand right now, you say, isn't that the one that cops have? It's very similar. This is called the X26C or Charlie, and that stands for the citizen or the civilian model. And they're relatively expensive. This is the high-end model. The next one is the Taser C2. This is a little bit less expensive. Actually, it's a lot less expensive than the X26 is. And it activates, you grip it like so, like a sword or a hammer grip. You pull back on the button and you can activate it like that. This was the more civilian-friendly, economical-friendly version of the Taser. Now, the latest iteration from the Taser is called the Pulse. This is relatively new. You may not have even seen it yet, but this is the Taser Pulse. Now you'll notice that it looks more like a handgun, and you hold it and you point it more like a handgun than you would the C2. Now the C2 and the Pulse use the exact same cartridges. They use different cartridges than the X26. This is the cartridge that is used for the law enforcement style models. This one for the Pulse. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, that's great, but I want the one that works like the cop one works. Here's a hint for you. Every single Taser unit works and functions the same way, with the exception of the duration of the ride. Now, many of you know that I was a police officer, and when I was a police officer and they issued us the X26 Taser, the ride, or the pulse, is 5 seconds. You tell someone, drop it, raise your hands. They don't, you taser them. And if you don't turn the unit off, after 5 seconds, it shuts itself off. Stops going. And if the person is not complying, well, then you can pull the trigger and give them another ride. Now, with the X26 C, it's a 15-second ride, or you can pump the trigger 1, 2, 3, and if you watch the videos from Taser, you taser someone, and then you pump it 1, 2, 3, set it on the ground, and run away, seek help. These units actually have a longer ride on purpose, because Taser understands that if you're a citizen, if your mom or pop or Susie or Sally or whatever, you're out there and a bad person's trying to hurt you and you taser them, you're not going to run over, flip them over onto their belly and put handcuffs on them and take them into custody, are you? No, not going to be doing that. What you're going to be doing is putting them down, stopping them, and then you're going to run for help. So what they want is for that person to be incapacitated for a greater amount of time. Whereas law enforcement, that they know, well, you're going to be arresting that guy, so you really don't need to taser him for 20, 30, 40 seconds. Now, some people are slow learners, and there's really nothing we can do about that. How does it work? Well, as you may have seen in movies or television shows, when you fire the taser, it shoots out 2 probes. And it's not using gunpowder, it's using compressed gas. But it shoots out 2 probes. The top probe goes straight and the bottom probe goes down at an angle. And they are barbed. I'm going to hold one up for you. You're going to get a close-up from Jared. But they're barbed probes. And the probes actually stick into the person. And what you do, or what the bad guy does, is you have 1, 2, and then the rest of you completes the circuit. If you took basic electronics in school, you know what a circuit is, right? And if you break the circuit or complete the circuit and so forth, that's all you're doing. Your body is completing the circuit. So both probes have to hit and go in. Now you say, well, Paul, how is it involuntary? It's involuntary because the electronic pulse, even though it hurts, the pain really isn't so much what stops you, it's the interruption of the nervous system. Now, it's not so, it doesn't interrupt you to the point where it's going to stop your heart or keep you from thinking, but it's going to interrupt your muscle impulses. Now, we all know that our nerves control our muscles, right? If you don't, go back to school. And now you say, what if they have a thick coat or a thick jacket? Well, the great thing about these barbs is even if they don't stick all the way in, the pulse goes out beyond the barbs. As a matter of fact, when I was going through police training, what they would normally do is they would have, well, it depended on where you went, but you could have 4 guys hold hands. One guy holds the right probe, the other guy holds the left probe, and you activate it. All 4 guys go down. Why? Because all 4 guys completed the circuit. I've actually been through Taser training classes where they took an expended cartridge. Now, once the cartridge fires, you can still keep activating it. You just can't put those little wires back in there again. And they took medical tape and taped one here and one here, activated it. Guess what? It worked. Now, redundancy. Let's say that you use this, you fire the barbs, and God hates you that day, and one of the barbs miss. Only one impacts in the bad guy. Well, only one isn't going to do it for you. So what you could do is you could ask the bad guy, hey, can you bend down and pick that thing up? And he may or may not do it and complete the circuit. Or you can drive stun them. You can actually push this. If you drive stun someone, that is basically just pushing this into their body. Then what you're dealing with is just pain compliance. Your takeaway from this lesson is this. Number 1, stun guns and tasers are not the same thing. They could not be possibly more different. Taser good, stun gun garbage. One other thing I want to tell you is that the taser does not cause people to go unconscious. I know you've seen movies and television shows where they tasered someone and the person went unconscious, but that's not true. The actual taser may be a viable use of force option.
How did you feel as you're being tased?
I feel like you're trying to pull on something, but it won't move, and you couldn't stop yourself from pulling on it.
Do you think that you would be able to attack somebody while you were being tased?
No, that falls under the can't move category.
Would you trust the taser as a self-defense tool?
Yes, because you can be much further away from your attacker versus pepper spray where you have to be much closer.
Did you feel like he could attack you while you were engaging the taser?
No.